Hey everyone, my name is Peter and today I am pleased to be a guest instructor for Piano Clubhouse. And I'm going to talk to you about using your keyboard playing to support an atmosphere of worship. I believe God can use instrumental music in a really powerful way to help set the environment for people to respond in worship. And these 7 tips are useful for those free-flowing moments in worship, whether it's during your music set or if somebody's praying or toward the end of your sermon. But just any instance where you're playing keyboard in a supporting kind of background role and help you to support what's going on at any point during the service. So the first tip I'm going to give you today is don't play a recognizable song. If you were to get up there at any point during service while somebody was speaking and start to play something like if you were to play that, then people would immediately recognize that as Amazing Grace, and they would be distracted from whoever is speaking because they're trying to figure out what you're playing, and now they're listening to your playing instead of listening to whatever's being said at that point. So if you do have to set up a song that's already on kind of the plan and you need to get ready to play it, then try to do it as simply as possible and set it up in a way so that people don't necessarily recognize what you're playing. So if I were going to play Amazing Grace, I'd maybe try to want to just start in the same key, but keep it really simple. Not even necessarily follow like the whole structure of the song. But just keep it simple and introduce it as simply as possible so that you don't detract from the words being spoken at that point. Tip number 2 is to play a simple chord progression. Just keep it very simple. One thing that you could do would be to play a 1 chord to a 4 chord progression. And let's say we're in the key of F major, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then back to the 1. We could build a chord off the first scale note, and we'd have an F major chord, and then off the 4th scale note, we would have a B flat chord. I could just play a really simple progression with just those 2 chords. And just something nice and simple and soft and slow would really support what's going on in a worshipful moment of a service. A couple of things we can do with this is we can change them from just regular triads to 2 chords. So I'm going to take out the 3rd and add the 2nd. So for F2, I'd have F, G, C. For B flat, I would have B flat, C, F. So using those chords, the other thing we could do is to keep the 4 chord, but instead of playing the 1 chord with the 1 in the bass, or the root in the bass, we could move it up to the 3rd in the bass, so play an A in the bass. So B flat 2, and then an F over A in the bass. And that creates a more smooth bass motion. Okay, so just keep your chord progression really simple. Tip number 3 is leave lots of space in your rhythms. Being too busy with your rhythms will compete with the words that are being spoken. If somebody was speaking and I got up and started playing, that's a lot to try to speak over. And all the syncopated rhythms and the sheer number of notes I'm playing would be a lot of competition. You don't need very many notes to support what's going on in a worshipful moment. So just keep it very simple with your rhythms and let it breathe, give lots of space, and don't suffocate the moment by just the sheer number of notes that you're playing. Keep your rhythms really simple. Tip number 4 is be free and expressive with your tempo. If you're playing by yourself, there's no need to keep a super metronome pulse with what you're doing. Just let your expressiveness come through with the freedom in your tempo. So just let your tempo just be free. Tip number 5 is let your dynamics ebb and flow with the moments during service. If the speaker was very solemn and serious and just being very quiet, then just stay underneath that. Not very many notes. Just very simple. But on the other hand, if a speaker starts getting really passionate and trying to drive the point home, then you can be more dynamic with your playing. You can play more notes, a little bit busier rhythms. You can start to expand the range of what you're playing. Playing louder, but just really try to support when a speaker gets more passionate like that. And this is not to try to manipulate people's emotions. This is just trying to support and encourage the person who's speaking, because if you're really being passionate and trying to really drive home your point and communicate that last point, and the music behind you is really just dull and uninspiring, that can just kind of suck the life out of the moment. On the other hand, it's obviously inappropriate if the moment is solemn and somber with what's being communicated, and the musician is up just banging on the piano with lots of notes and big chords and busy rhythms and everything. So just make sure you ebb and flow with the moment with the speaker and support whatever level of dynamic they're speaking at. Number 6 is try to set up your keyboard to mix different sounds. I have my keyboard set up to mix 4 different sounds. I have one slider that controls my overall volume, but then I have a slider for 4 different sounds, and this controls the volume of each one. This slider is set up to control the volume on a piano sound. This is set up to control the volume on a Rhodes electric piano sound. I'm going to jump around, but number 3 is a string sound. And this one is the one I'm going to talk most about, but this is my pad sound on slider 2. And a pad sound is just a synthesizer sound with a very slow attack, a longer release, and a constant sustain level if you hold it out. I'm sustaining with the pedal. It doesn't have a lot of high frequency content, but it's just something that kind of sits in the middle and low range, and it acts as a sort of glue when you're playing something slow. So here's an example of how I would use a pad sound and mix it in with different sounds. If I were to get up at the end of service, I might play a chord and hold it with the sustain pedal with everything down, and then just slowly fade the pad sound in. And then I might even just play the pad sound for a bit. And then I could mix in either a piano sound or the electric piano sound. I'm going to go ahead and mix in the Rhodes electric piano sound. It mixes really well with that pad sound, I think. I like to play some octaves with the Rhodes. So up here you notice that you're hearing the Rhodes, but you're not hearing the pad. And what I've done is I like to limit the pad sound to not play in the upper register of the keyboard. I think that if you start adding a lot of pad sound up here, it can overwhelm the sound pretty quickly. So I set up my pad sound to stop after C4, which is the octave above middle C. So if I play just the pad sound, you'll hear it on this C4, but not on the C sharp or any notes above it. So when I'm doing these octaves with the Rhodes, just the Rhodes with the octaves and not the pad sound up there. It helps just to keep a cleaner and tighter sound. So I could play that for a bit. If it started to get more dynamic, I could add the string sound into it. Soften down, I could fade the string sound out. I'm just left with the Rhodes and electric piano again. So that's how I would use mixing sounds in supporting an atmosphere of worship at that point. Now, if your keyboard doesn't have that sort of functionality where you can mix sounds like that, you can achieve the same, a very similar result using software. So if you have a bit of technical savvy and you can connect your keyboard through a MIDI connection to a laptop or another computer, there are any number of software solutions that would give you that same sort of pad sound. It might be a regular recording software like Logic or Pro Tools or Sonar or something like that. Or it might even just be some sort of freeware virtual synthesizer that you found online. So just go ahead and search for that and use that if your keyboard doesn't have the functionality to mix sounds on its own. Finally, tip number 7 is just kind of a mindset thing, and that is just to remember that your role is to support in this environment when you're just helping to create an atmosphere of worship. It's just to support. It's not to show everybody all the cool things that you can do with your keyboard. It's certainly not to put the spotlight on yourself, but your purpose is just to serve God and to serve people in that moment. Help create an environment for people to respond to God, and ultimately I think helping people to respond to worship is far more gratifying than any accolades you can kind of get for yourself through the cool things that you can do on your keyboard. So anyway, just remember to allow God to use what you're doing in the background to serve the moment and to serve Him, and yeah, just remember your role at all times. So I hope that's been helpful. I want to thank Piano Clubhouse for the opportunity to do this guest instructional video, and thank you for watching.